That hearing scheduled for this afternoon. Judge Dale E. Ho, nominated by former President Joe Biden, scheduled today's hearing after 3 Trump administration lawyers from Washington made that dismissal request on Friday. Now, Manhattan's top federal prosecutor resigned after she refused an order to do so. We're going to turn things over to Fox 5's Arthur Chian, who is outside of the courthouse in Lower Manhattan, where this will all go down today. Arthur, what's the very latest?
All eyes are on this federal courthouse here today, Bianca, and that includes the eyes of Governor Kathy Hochul, who many are calling on to remove Mayor Adams from office. As for what will happen here today at 2 o'clock, Judge Dale E. Ho has ordered both sides to come and make arguments as to why they have asked for the court to drop the prosecution of the corruption charges, the case regarding the corruption charges against Mayor Eric Adams. He wants them on record. Now, Judge Ho took this extraordinary step after, as you pointed out, the acting attorney, U.S. attorney in New York, Danielle Sassoon, wrote a letter to Washington refusing to carry out that order that you mentioned. She then resigned, calling the request a quid pro quo, implying that the mayor gets the charges dropped in exchange for carrying out the agenda of the Trump administration. Now, 6 other federal prosecutors followed in Sassoon's footsteps. They also quit rather than sign off to carry out that order coming from Washington. Now, Adams denies there has been a quid pro quo with the Trump administration. He also denies any wrongdoing in connection with this federal case. A lot has been happening regarding his case, so here's a timeline of everything leading up to this morning.
Mayor Eric Adams' legal troubles began long before his first court appearance. According to the 5-count indictment against him, back in 2015, he established relationships with Turkish officials. Between October 2016 and 2017, he traveled to the country 3 times, allegedly accepting pricey tickets and luxury hotel stays in exchange for influence back in New York City. The swanky upgrades and expensive favors allegedly lasted through 2020. And in that year, Adams is accused of soliciting and receiving straw donations to circumvent the city's campaign finance rules. Fast forward to September of 2021, when the mayor allegedly put pressure on the FDNY to fast-track the opening of a new Turkish skyscraper on the east side, a building that was not up to code and failed inspection. It was in November of 2023 when the feds ramped up their investigation, raiding the home of Adams' aide, Brianna Suggs, and seizing the mayor's electronic devices. In 2024, the FBI raided the home of even more of his top advisors, including Winnie Greco. Fast forward to July of 2024, when the mayor is officially served grand jury subpoenas. And from that point forward, one aide after the next resigns, from the police commissioner to his chief counsel to the school's chancellor. And in September, the federal indictment against the mayor is unsealed.
I've done nothing wrong. Time will prove that.
While the mayor pled not guilty and denies any wrongdoing, the calls for him to resign start getting louder.
Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Then Trump wins the presidential election. It's November, which would set off a number of meetings, including Adams flying down to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump. And days later, Adams cancels appearances at Martin Luther King events in New York City to attend Trump's inauguration and ends up watching it from an overflow room. His absence on the profound holiday was noticed.
Some that should be here celebrating Dr. King with us in this room have chosen to go to Washington to celebrate Felon 47.
On February 10th, a major legal and political firestorm would be sparked as the Justice Department in Washington orders prosecutors in the Southern District of New York to dismiss Adams' corruption case without prejudice, meaning it could be brought up against Adams in the future. The letter said the case was hindering Adams' ability to do his job, including addressing the immigration crisis. But the acting U.S. attorney in New York, Danielle Sassoon, a Trump appointee, refuses to sign off on dropping that case, claiming what was happening was a quid pro quo, where charges would be dropped in exchange for Adams' cooperation with the Trump administration. Sassoon would resign rather than sign off on the order. 6 other federal prosecutors joined her and quit. Protests begin around the city, and high-profile Democrats start saying it is time for Adams to step down. Meanwhile, the mayor continues to appear at churches where he has support, repeating his line that instead of stepping down, he intends to step up and weather the storm.
We're straight ahead. We're focused.
But the political turbulence would soon develop into a perfect storm, as half the deputy mayors would hand in their resignations on the same day, Monday, February 17th, citing they could no longer be true to their oaths to serve New Yorkers and their families. The 4 defections lead many to point out the mayor had, by then, lost the trust of his own staff. And by that night, Governor Kathy Hochul, who has the constitutional power to remove Adams from office, releases a statement calling on key leaders to meet with her, saying the alleged conduct in the 2 weeks leading up to this point is, quote, troubling and cannot be ignored. The next day, the meetings with various leaders takes place at the governor's office in Midtown Manhattan.
Again, all parties are expected to be in Judge Dale Ho's courtroom at 2 o'clock, where he will hear arguments on the record for why the two sides want this case to be dropped. One of the issues that's been brought up by legal experts is that he will only be getting one side of the argument because in this case, Adams and the Justice Department, the heads of the Justice Department, agree in wanting the charges at least put on hold or dropped. Legal experts say perhaps what the judge might want to consider is also having somebody testify on behalf of the people, because while Washington's interests will be represented and that of Eric Adams, they say nobody's representing the people making arguments here today. We'll have to see on how Judge Ho decides on that. And finally, many people think a decision might come today, and from what we're hearing from people who know the judge, they say he's a very, very careful judge, and they say to expect that he will not render a decision today, that he'll take all this in, and that this might go on for days, if not weeks, before that comes back, which may impact Governor Hochul's decision as well. Bianca?
Now, Arthur, before you go, we know this is not the first time Hochul has been asked to remove Adams from office. So is anything different this time around?
Right. Last time she was asked was in the fall when the charges were first filed, and it was a pretty loud chorus. She did not act on it, obviously. This time around, people point out that what might have put that off is she still wanted to have confidence that Eric Adams could work it out and help manage the city. The appointment of some of those top deputies, including Maria Torres Springer, was key, we are told, to the confidence that the governor had that the city was being run well. Now that Maria Torres Springer is one of the 4 top deputies that that put in their resignations, are still serving the city, but they put in their notice that they're leaving. That is something that may weigh very heavily on the governor's mind in trying to figure out who will actually run the city right now. Bianca?
Sure. All right, Arthur, thank you so much.